Hey, good morning, y'all. Josh's Severe Weather. If you're just joining me for the first time, my goal is to look at major weather impacting the United States and maybe even parts of Canada. And we do have some extreme weather that we're talking about already this week between severe weather across the plains and parts of the east, and also looking at some major temperature swings coming over the next couple of days. But we're going to look and dive into more of what I'm looking at kind of in a somewhat longer term here over the next week. I do my videos typically 6 days a week. This week it's going to be five. I'm not able to do one in the morning tomorrow, so you'll have a day off from me. But I'm going to do my best to cover what I can here in the next couple of days. Here's a look at an extreme weather pattern that we are getting ready to head into, a very ample jet stream where we're going to see a large region of high pressure building over Western Canada and the Northwest. That's going to lead to an early season heat wave in places that have not seen a heat wave in May anytime in the last several years. The Pacific Northwest, Western Canada are going to be in for some extreme amounts of warmth this early in the season. We already have wildfire issues across Alberta, Canada. That smoke has gone all the way into New England and the northern U.S. this morning. And this is not going to make that any better anytime soon, unfortunately. At the same time, a very active weather pattern over the high plains. We've seen a lot of severe weather across Nebraska, Iowa, and Kansas over the last few days. Northern parts of Texas, Colorado, and Wyoming getting in on the action here, and the Dakotas as well the next few days. And underneath it all, we've got a very active flow out of the southwest. Slow-moving storm systems kind of trapped below our region of high pressure, leading to a lot of rain over parts of Texas, and we may see a bit of flooding as well in parts of Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and southeast Oklahoma over the next couple of days. While we talk about all of that, we definitely have seen a drier weather pattern start to take shape over portions of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Not everybody seeing a widespread drought, but I am concerned with the dry northwesterly flow that overall we're not going to see enough rain as farmers look to see more rain this time of the year from storm complexes. And we do have some building drought conditions, not a widespread long-term drought at this point like we've seen across the Great Plains, but something I'm going to be watching for you in Virginia, North Carolina, West Virginia, and Maryland over the next coming days. And the reason why is we've got a big trough over eastern Canada that's going to send drier, cooler air down into New England and the Northeast over the next few days. We will see some of the weather across the plains making it eastward, but widespread East Coast storms that we've seen over the last several months, not going to be the case here anytime soon. Here's a look at the drought monitor. We'll have a new one coming tomorrow, but you can start to see some dryness here in the mid-Atlantic and across southern New England. Nothing significant at this point. Obviously, the big drought story has been from West Texas on up into Nebraska. We've had some rain coming in those areas over the last couple of weeks, but not enough to put a big dent in the drought. Also, western Florida, we continue to have dry weather, although obviously that's not the case for eastern Florida. So we're going to take a look at that here in the next couple of weeks as well. Over the last 24 hours, you can see two main areas of heavy rain that have impacted the United States. One across central and south Texas and surrounding states. Blob after blob here. We've got just unsettled weather, a very slow-moving upper-level low-pressure system. And then the northern part of that, coming out of the southwest, we've seen multiple what we call ridge runners. These are complexes of storms that produce widespread wind damage and hail with them. We had one over Nebraska and Kansas yesterday, another one forming over northeast Colorado overnight. That is now moving up into Wyoming and western Nebraska. I'm going to keep an eye on that for you as well. We're quieting down across the mid-Atlantic. We did have some severe weather and some pretty big hail over eastern North Carolina and some hail as well in parts of South Carolina with our boundary yesterday. That is moving out to sea, and we do have a quieter and beautiful weather day expected today across the Carolinas and mid-Atlantic region. Here's a look at rainfall estimates from Texas as we get to between Victoria and Bay City. As much as a foot of rain has fallen over the last day or so, we are going to see additional flooding across this region. Very concerned about slow-moving storms over the same areas. Houston has not seen significant flooding, but we do have some areas that have picked up over 4 inches. Obviously, more off to your south and west around Palacios. This rain is moving northeastward, so the Houston area, I am concerned about some flooding here over the next couple of days. And we also did see a lot of rain in Louisiana, and unfortunately, the New Orleans area got 5-6 inches of rain yesterday in just a short amount of time. And in New Orleans, it doesn't take a lot to cause flooding, so a few inches of rain in 30 minutes is enough to cause widespread flooding here as well. Here's a look at the current radar, and we can see the rain bearing down on the Houston area. It has really come down hard around Palacios, and areas just northward, just to the north of Palacios, around Pheasant, Texas, and right up to the river, mouth of the river here. But now we can see things that are starting to move northeastward into the Houston metro area, and nothing is moving quickly here. So Houston, not as bad as New Orleans when it comes to flooding, but we have had our share of flash floods. Here comes a very heavy rain, probably not really any severe weather, but a lot of lightning strikes in the Lake Jackson area, Angleton, and this will be spreading northeast into the Houston area this morning. And I would not be shocked if we saw some places in southeast Texas pick up a foot of rain today. That will cause widespread flash flooding. So definitely an elevated risk for some flooding later on today across this region. And as I zoom out, I can show you kind of more of the radar here across the nation. And in the southeast, we're nice and quiet. We are seeing some heavier cells across northern Louisiana. And we do have an enhanced area of severe weather expected, a slight risk right now that I think could get upgraded over northeastern Colorado and the panhandle of Nebraska, and maybe eastern and southeastern Wyoming as well. This is the area to watch out for more significant severe weather from the Denver and Fort Collins area on eastward into southwestern Nebraska, including McCook, and getting close to North Platte here later today. Here's a look at the upper level pattern. You can see how we have a lot of color contrast. This is our upper low over Colorado here that is going to bring very unsettled weather, increasing winds aloft here and drawing moisture up from the south. So we're going to see active weather here and maybe an enhanced risk day tomorrow as well. That kind of flattens out and runs into this building ridge of high pressure over Western Canada over the weekend. That's going to heat things up significantly here in the Northwest and especially in Western Canada. In the east, we have a cool shot coming down, kind of a trough here that builds in. It's going to continue to cool things off next week. So the eastern U.S. is going to see cooler weather again as we head towards the middle of May. It's going to stay very unsettled, though, across Texas. Notice how instead of this ridge trying to build down into Texas, we get stuck with southwesterly flow aloft coming out of a trough here in Mexico. And that is going to be responsible for a lot of rain until we get to early next week when that ridge rebuilds. So a lot of extremes coming over the next several days. You can look, this is precipitable water. This shows how much water is in the atmosphere. You can see how quickly it builds up in southeastern Texas around Houston here this morning. Just a ton of juice in the atmosphere. That will lift up into Arkansas and weaken some. We will see another surge of moisture here on Friday into Saturday over South Texas, San Antonio area on down to Corpus Christi and Brownsville. A lot of juice in the air for a lot of rain potentially here over the weekend, and that could cause a widespread flood. And then we finally see some drier air starting to push down next week, but we still have some moisture lingering across the Gulf states here. Here's a look at the NAM model over the next 60 hours, and you can see some significant amounts of rain, perhaps over a foot here over parts of Texas, a lot over southwestern Arkansas, and significant rain over eastern Montana into the western Dakotas just across the next 2 days, right on through Friday morning or so. Zooming into Texas here through Friday morning, we are looking at potentially 5 to 10 inches of rain in the Houston metro, especially the southwest side of town, and also potentially 3 to 6 inches of rain in southwestern Arkansas. And this is just one model. We could see some differences. We could see this shifting east or farther north. So somebody's going to see a lot of rain here in just the next couple of days. As we get into the weekend and beyond, we see even more rain back across southwestern or not really southwestern, but deep South Texas and especially south central Texas up into the hill country, and perhaps as much as a foot of rain in the San Antonio area down to about Del Rio. So we do have the potential to see, I don't want to say a historic flood, but a major flood for some areas here in south central portions of Texas, even into West Texas, potentially 3 to 6 inches of rain over the next, say, 4 to 5 days. The GFS model also very wet here, has slightly different solution than the European, but the song remains the same. Lots of rain falling. And obviously in the Houston area and over to Beaumont and southwestern Louisiana, we've got to watch out for quite a bit of rain as well. Excessive rain outlook coming from the Weather Prediction Center shows at least a 40% chance of flash flooding here across much of East Texas today and tonight. This will extend into southwestern Arkansas and across western Louisiana. We could see flooding all the way up close to Memphis, Little Rock, and even up into the Ozarks region. And I also mentioned yesterday in my video, but I'll bring it back in today, the threat for some flooding over the high plains here, and that actually extends back into central Wyoming and southeastern parts of Montana. That area grows tomorrow and builds all the way up to southern Saskatchewan, but the western Dakotas, eastern Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana all have the threat for flooding. We will see improving weather over southeast Texas tomorrow, with the threat for flooding starting to grow northeastward into the lower Ohio River Valley and mid-Mississippi Valley. And then that shifts into the mid-Ohio Valley and southern Ohio here for the day on Friday. We have our next area of flooding to keep an eye on west of San Antonio, and we still have the threat for some flooding in South Dakota. This weekend, additional flooding in Texas, moderate risk 2 straight days. That's not going to be good for anybody, and still a slight risk for flooding on Sunday. And I think that could get enhanced in this region here as well. So a lot of rain in some of the same places over the next 5 days. We saw a lot of severe weather yesterday over Kansas into southwestern Missouri, just a lot of wind damage and a lot of big hail. A lot of big hail north and east of Denver into the western parts of Nebraska, and also some hail across the Dakotas. And some pretty nasty hail falling in the Greenville, North Carolina area yesterday, which included Aden. We had hail covering the ground with a nasty storm that moved through here right before dinner yesterday, and some strong winds from the Virginia border all the way down to about Morehead City and towards Atlantic Beach. We also had some hail over parts of South Carolina and Georgia, but widespread severe weather did not occur. Notice how Texas did not see a lot of severe weather. That has been a change from the last couple of days. The reason why, with this upper level low, we've got a lot more cloud cover, and that has kind of killed off the storm fuel for severe weather, but it does not mean we're not getting heavy rain out of this. So definitely something we're keeping an eye on. And really the areas to watch the next couple of days are going to be across the Great Plains and the Central Plains here. We will see potentially some marginal severe weather over eastern Texas and western Louisiana, shifting east with time. Here's a look at today's 4-panel here, and you guys can see the threat for tornadoes climbs in the Denver area and on over into southwestern Nebraska. Also a big threat for large hail from Denver on east into southwestern Nebraska. I do think there could be an upgrade to enhance somewhere in this region here, but it's really tough to say at this point, as models do disagree some. As we get to tomorrow, that area shifts eastward and includes more of Oklahoma, Kansas, and eastern parts of Nebraska at night. Here's the 4-panel showing you that that tornado risk does climb over Kansas and over Oklahoma, including Oklahoma City, and a huge threat for big hail, giant hail from Oklahoma City on northward towards about Wichita, Kansas, and Dodge City, Kansas, and even climbing all the way up into South Dakota. And as we get to day 3, that threat is not as big as the upper low opens up and moves over into Iowa. And then our next upper low moves out of Mexico into parts of south central Texas, with a slight risk just to the west of San Antonio. We're not seeing any severe weather beyond Saturday, at least not a large area, but I do think there could be some, mainly in the plains again, but eventually expanding eastward into the mid-Atlantic region. And we'll have more of a view of that as we get on into next week. Here's a zoomed-in view of Colorado. You can see that hail threat all the way back to just west of Denver, really to the foothills, and certainly a tornado risk as well back to the I-35 corridor and 25 and expanding eastward here as well. And as we get to tomorrow, the risk for severe weather shifts eastward, just far eastern parts of Colorado, more though Kansas and Nebraska. And then quieter weather for Friday, but notice we do have fire weather conditions over southwestern Colorado. We could see wildfires expanding in the Alamosa area and across the higher elevations there as well. And shifting over to Kansas today, you can see most of the severe weather is over the western portion of the state, and then all of the state has a risk of some severe weather, especially from Great Bend on southward through Pratt and just to the south of Wichita, southwest of the Flint Hills. Big hail, 2 to 3 inches in diameter, and then quieter weather as we head on into Friday. It's still a marginal risk, but most of that shifts off to your north and east. Let's look at model forecasts really quickly. I got to get through this pretty fast for you guys. We'll see storms firing in Mississippi, Tennessee, and Arkansas, and then shifting northeast into Alabama later today and into western Georgia, and then kind of more of the same here tomorrow. We'll see additional storms popping up and moving northeast. Nothing severe, but certainly there could be some heavy rain. Across Louisiana, we are going to see another day of maybe some very heavy rainfall, especially in western Louisiana, the Shreveport area, and then later on this afternoon across Lake Charles and up to about DeRidder and Leesville, and that will shift slowly eastward. I think New Orleans is going to see some rain, but nothing like what we saw here yesterday. However, with this upper low shifting in your direction in New Orleans, we definitely have to keep an eye on additional showers and storms over the next 24 to 48 hours. Southeast Texas is really where the worst rain is going to be. You can see things building through the Houston area all morning long. We're going to see heavy rain in Houston, and then another surge of heavy storms from Palacios and Lake Jackson shifting northeastward. So Houston, we're going to be under the gun with heavy rain right on through early this evening before potentially a lull comes, and then more storms fire up tomorrow across portions of south central Texas. But tomorrow should be a quieter day, and then we see more active weather as we head into the weekend hours. Arkansas is going to get pretty wet as well. I don't want to leave you out in Arkansas here. We're going to see that heavy rain across southwestern portions of Arkansas and southern Arkansas. It shifts northward through the afternoon. There could be some severe weather out of this. Around the Memphis area, things could get kind of rough. And then additional storms tonight shifting northward, and the pattern repeats itself overnight. Just bands of heavy rain here, which could cause some flash flooding on the I-40 corridor here, and then things will start to quiet down here, according to the NAM model here, by tomorrow evening, with more weather coming towards the end of the week and over the weekend. Let's take a peek at Kansas here, and you can see things are not super busy this morning, but we do have some heavier showers and storms likely to pop up between Colby and Hayes here on Interstate 70 around mid-afternoon, and then developing and moving northeastward through this evening. Additional storms in far western Kansas this evening and continuing. There could be some flash flooding, but certainly hail is going to be a big threat here. And we could see some isolated supercells tomorrow afternoon over western Kansas, with the threat for a few tornadoes across this region. There is some wind shear that picks up as we see the upper low in Colorado shifting northeastward. So more of a tornado day tomorrow than today, potentially across Kansas. And then even some additional storms expected Friday afternoon, which this model does not get all the way out to. In Nebraska, we see busy weather as well. We've already kind of talked about that, but storms in eastern Nebraska here this morning, additional storms building in from Colorado into western Nebraska this evening, and we'll continue to see severe weather overnight in some areas, and then more storms for tomorrow. Sound like a broken record here, but yeah, North Platte, Scottsbluff, McCook are all going to be under the risk for large hail and a few tornadoes during the day tomorrow into early tomorrow night. So storm chasers are likely going to be all meeting across western Nebraska here. It looks like a pretty good setup for that over the next 48 hours or so. Colorado, I don't want to leave you guys out, but the Denver area is likely to see some rough weather here later on today. Storms popping up south of Denver around Pueblo and Colorado Springs, maybe over Cheyenne Mountain later this afternoon, and then moving through the Denver area around 6 to 7 o'clock tonight. And there will be the threat for a few tornadoes and very big hail in the Denver area. We start seeing that in the spring, but we see it more likely here in June and July. But I do think we're going to be in kind of a summer-like pattern here over the next couple of days. More storms expected tomorrow with very heavy rain and flash flooding. The severe threat tomorrow is going to be mainly across far northeastern Colorado, maybe even as far south as Lamar. And then a quieter day on Friday, but we will still see some showers and storms firing up over the mountains and then shifting out onto the front range here later on today, Friday. And the Dakotas and Montana and Wyoming, you're going to see a lot of rain and storms, maybe some severe weather as well across southern Saskatchewan overnight tonight into tomorrow. Here comes the upper low feeding more moisture northeastward. There'll be a lot of rain, maybe 4 or 5 inches somewhere in eastern Montana and western North Dakota. And it's going to be kind of a cool rain with elevated thunderstorms across this region here. The Ohio Valley and Tennessee valleys will start to see more active weather again over the next couple of days. Our boundary shifts northward into southern Missouri, into southwestern Kentucky overnight tonight. Nothing severe expected, at least from this first wave. But as we get into tomorrow afternoon and evening, we see additional showers and storms over middle and western Tennessee. Some of them could be stronger, and these will build up into Kentucky and downstate Illinois and Indiana and cause more issues with potential flooding as we get into Friday and Saturday here across the Ohio Valley states. Finally, let's take a look at the northwestern U.S. We are heating up. This is Sunday. High temperatures around 83 in Seattle, but 93 or 94 in Tacoma. and even close to 90 all the way to the Pacific coastline. Portland close to 90. Remember, if you are in the Northwest, a lot of you folks don't even have air conditioning. So while this isn't going to be an extreme event where we hit 100 like we did 2 summers ago, it is still going to be very warm. So be prepared for that. And this heat does last into about the middle of next week before things cool off. Looking at Western Canada as well, this is Celsius. The GFS model shows temperatures as high as 34 to 36 degrees Celsius in northeastern British Columbia here early next week on Monday. Fahrenheit, that's about 95, and we're talking about northeastern British Columbia, northwestern Alberta, even on into parts of Yukon here are going to be seeing temperatures well above 30 Celsius. So pretty extreme heat for this early in the season. And wildfires are going to be a problem as well, as we really need some cooling rain, but all we're getting is the heat and the not the humidity, but the heat. And it is certainly on here over the next 6 to 7 days in Western Canada. All right, so I really appreciate y'all's time today. No video tomorrow. I normally would do one, but I'm going to be on the road for work. I'll be back Friday morning for you guys. If you could subscribe to my channel, you won't want to miss that video, and like and share with your friends if you could as well. I am happy if anybody here has any prayer requests. I am a child of God, and I do this every day as a Christian man. I'm happy to pray for you. And I know a lot of us struggle every day. I'm a scientist, and I know in science we want to believe what we see, but I also believe what I don't see. That is faith. I believe that Jesus Christ has died on the cross for my eternal life, and I want to share that good news for you. In 2 Corinthians 6 through 9, or 2, 6 through 9, generosity is encouraged. I want to just pour into you all generously, whether it be praying for you or providing you with very important information. But Paul says, remember this: whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver, and God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. I know some of you are farmers, and you know that you have to sow generously if you want to have a generous crop later on. Well, God just calls us all to do that, and I want to follow this every day in my continual walk with God, in my continual spiritual journey. And I just wanted to share that good news with you, that putting in the effort is going to give you the results you want. Being cheerful about it will give you the love of God. You've got to be cheerful in what you do every day. It is so easy to struggle no matter what. If you deal with financial struggles, health struggles, spiritual struggles, or more, I very much have been there. And I just want to pray for you if you are struggling and want to be more cheerful in your life. I just want you to be blessed in every way possible. And I'm just here to encourage you, knowing that one day Jesus is coming again, and I'm ready for that, and I want you to be ready as well. So I wanted to just share that good news with you, because I think it drives me to do what I do every single day. It is having faith in the unseen, but knowing that there is abundance coming to me. I'm going to be blessed by God, and I really pray that God blesses you in as many ways as possible. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday and Thursday, and I'll chat with you all again Friday morning. Please be safe, and see you then. Take care.